Hello and welcome to this presentation on relationship mindfulness. My name is Amy and I'm from Southern New Hampshire University with course IDS402 on Wellness. Today we'll be looking at the way our mindset affects relationships and how we can change our point of view so that it promotes positivity. Before we dive in, it's important to understand how our outlook is shaped by wellness. While health is a measurable physical state, wellness is the general attitude of life satisfaction, and there are 8 dimensions ranging from emotional to financial to spiritual. Each dimension contributes to the way you feel in your environment, and when brought together, they create a picture of balance and outlook uniquely tailored to your experience and state of mind. Essentially, wellness is the lens we use to view our world, and how we nurture it contributes to good health and the ability to cope in a constructive way. An individual who feels well is in tune with their needs for nutrition, physical activity, social interaction, and rewarding work. When wellness is optimal, we experience positive affect that bolsters health and inspires genuineness in relationships and communities. In any given society, one of the first things you encounter is the presence of relationships. Platonic ones satisfy the need to be part of a group. Families create our value systems. They shape our behavior and ethics. And romantic partnerships provide space where we come together to create intimate partnerships that provide stability, connection, and emotional assurance. As my study of psychology and therapeutic practice moves forward, I come to better understand how the human drive to seek companionship makes social and emotional wellness critical. We are creatures of habit, relying on cued behavior for 40% of our day. We are also highly influenced by those in our social group, and we mirror the behavior of those important to us. And this means that the mindset we bring to our community and relationships determines how we impact our environment and our health. As we move through social circles, wellness becomes part of the air that we breathe together. And when we bring positive attention to personal behavior, good habits of wellness begin to ripple outward, inspiring new like-minded behaviors. Relationships are a great example of how wellness influences everyday behavior. People in positive relationships have less risk of early death, while those in negative ones face risk of depression, immunosuppression, and cardiovascular strain. And this is because healthy relationships provide space to talk about daily stress and offer examples of good emotional habits, while unhealthy relationships spread negative emotional contagion. A committed relationship usually implies that partners are more likely to pursue rewarding careers and strive for milestones like homeownership and children. And because relationships are woven into the fabric of society, being part of a couple increases social support. And we affect those around us by the way we develop our personal wellness. So let's take a look at a topic that helps sustain it. At its core, mindfulness means being conscious of the moment you're in. Being in a state of mindfulness means maintaining awareness of self and others while reserving judgment and evaluating emotional feedback. This is crucial in our society as we face constant scrutiny and requests for attention by social media and marketing campaigns and long work hours. Creating intentional mindfulness offsets these demands, and it sets the stage for emotional well-being and healthy relationships. It means creating a space where you can return to the present moment and enjoy companionship without strain or obligation. You can sift through and understand your feelings so that you can have productive dialogue that involves genuine emotional connection. And this encourages healthy partnerships, and it fights against the inherent individualism in our culture by asking what you see and why you think instead of what you need and what you want. While mindfulness on a personal level is necessary for overall wellness, it becomes critical in committed relationships. To maintain connectedness, a person must be able to read a given moment from an emotional, behavioral, and logical standpoint. Success relies on being able to see outside of your own point of view. For couples, this is further complicated because they also have to navigate intimate and social expectations simultaneously. And this means they have to be mindful of their own experience and on how they're projecting their relationship to society. For example, common expectations of maintaining a stable and loving relationship leads couples to believe they have to live in that initial phase of intense passion, and they perceive failure when they do not. They also contend with the expectation of individualism, which creates conflict with togetherness needs. And so what often results is the fracturing of relationships, with each person focusing more intensely on their internal struggle. Without mindfulness, there's just a greater risk to damaging emotional and social wellness. Becoming aware of how you feel and what your environment is telling you lessens this risk by placing you in a state of connection, and that's exactly what emotional wellness requires. People need to feel that they can relate to a person who's trusted and loved. Mindfulness acts as a barometer for emotions and physical health, so you can maintain the balance to nurture your partner and put energy into social obligations. If you're staying tuned into the moment, you will be aware of rising tensions or increased sense of peace and tranquility. Using this emotional intelligence, you can steer a path more firmly toward the positive and away from the negative. So much of life involves regulating emotions and gathering perspective, but people don't always come to the table with these skills. You may be recovering from trauma or miss the opportunity to experience mindful role models. but this is a skill that can be learned. And as a person learns to experience the present moment, they can look outside of their preconceptions and connect with what's happening right now. And for couples, this is where some critical relational work takes place in deciding to look outside of the self. When this happens, we see couples try multiple methods of crisis resolution. They're more likely to accurately read the emotional expressions of their partner, and they're also more likely to feel satisfied and secure with resolution outcomes. In other words, increased emotional intelligence and mindfulness leads to increased tolerance and positive affect. And at this point, you're probably thinking, all this information is great, but how do I put it into action? So let's take a look at some things you can do to promote mindfulness and wellness in your relationship. The goal of this plan is to take a look at how connecting with the moment and activating emotional intelligence can support a healthy relationship. By the end of my recommendations, couples should feel they have some helpful tools to establish an environment of mindfulness and emotional awareness that allows them to connect on a meaningful level, meeting the needs of both partners. This environment of cooperation and communication soothes the needs of emotional and social wellness, helping to bring the body into a positive attitude toward life and health. Participating in a relationship with an attitude of wellness can inspire the confidence to overcome fear of rejection or habits of solitude, so the couple can embrace the relationship with genuineness and courtesy. We can begin by understanding the cycle of intention, attention, and attitude. Intention involves outcomes we hope for. Good intentions lead to reaching out an olive branch before conflict escalates, or making the first gesture of communication after it ends. They are actions that build quality relationships, bolstering social wellness. Attention is the action of observing and focusing on the present moment. You show attention by engaging without disconnecting to think of your reply. And applied internally, it means noticing what your environment is telling you, how it makes you feel, and how you're prompted to respond. In mindfulness, attention is non-reactive. It is simply being present. And finally, we come to attitude, which is the way you approach a situation with your good intentions and observations. This quality is considered the foundation of mindfulness because it is essentially putting the steps into action. Examples of attitudes are letting go, curiosity, patience, and playfulness. These attitudes imply shared power. For example, to let go, you must understand you cannot always be in control. And to be curious, you must accept that you do not have every answer. Allowing equality builds strength in your relationship and confidence in yourself. It creates a network of care and security. Tending to satisfying relationships and deep connections also promotes positive well-being. It is important to know that even with positive intentions and attitudes of compassion, conflict is inevitable. When it occurs, a couple must decide whether to approach the situation from an individual or unified standpoint. This is an opportunity to use emotional intelligence to preserve wellness within the relationship, because reverting to an individual perspective is damaging to social needs. If someone reacts from a self-focused perspective, using dominant language or actions, they're exerting power over their partner. They're shutting down communication, opting to make a sole decision to end the conflict, which often results in criticism and attacks. The opportunity to change this lies in connecting with the needs of the other person. Listen to their feelings, hear their concerns, and then find a solution that makes sense as a couple. When you minimize competition and authority, you make room for collaboration and influence. Tuning into this emotional intelligence is important because when we pay attention to the needs of those who we care about, we gravitate toward addressing them positively. The journey of emotional wellness is not without challenges, the main one being social expectations. Society tells us that men should be in control and the head of the family, and that women should be accommodating and submissive. But neither role will serve a modern relationship well because couples require more emotional input than ever before. We expect to have self-actualizing needs met, such as open and intellectual worldviews, or empowered support to attain life goals, and the freedom to explore unique personality traits, whereas previous generations provided more foundational needs of survival and security. And this puts pressure on couples because they may not have been given the tools to navigate their own wellness, let alone that of their partner. Another challenge lies in resisting therapy stereotypes. Many people are still under the assumption that therapeutic language and wellness concepts are only for those who can't manage on their own or for the younger generations. And I would offer another way to look at these exercises, that science is teaching us shortcuts and tricks to connecting with each other. And we accept this in medicine when we opt for surgical procedures that are cutting edge over traditional methods, but we still resist when it comes to the mind. And I would encourage you to remember that if it helps, it's worth it. And if you don't like the phrases that are used, then feel free to rename them. Call them what you will, but use them because they work. Learning to connect to the moment and trying to connect to your partner feels good. And when you continue trying, you create a habit. So whether or not you get it right, the fact that you try means you're decreasing the chance of relying on your internal monologue. And over time, your brain starts from mindfulness, deepening your connection to wellness. Being present is the conduit for making friends and building satisfying relationships. We have all experienced talking to someone who's fully engaged in our conversation. They look at us, they give signs that they're paying attention, and they ask questions that come from really listening. The steps in this plan outline the skills needed to do this in your relationship, and what starts as a chance to talk with your partner will work its way through other moments, encouraging overall wellness. Following these steps decreases the risk of ignoring an important situation. It also increases the likelihood of separating past hurt from present conflict because you're seeing what's happening without the obligation to act. And letting go of reactionary behavior means letting go of emotional fallout. Looking back in history, mindfulness has deep roots in Eastern spiritualism, primarily Buddhism. And from this we see historical record that cultivating outward awareness has a positive effect on health and relationships. And now more than ever, in our age of overload, we need to have something meaningful and selfless to fall back on. In social psychology, one of the chief concerns is that in our modern culture, nothing lasts and people do not connect. Meanwhile, our advances in science are confirming that power lies in social connection through intentional physical contact and through maintaining balanced wellness. We're letting the keys to wellness slip right past us. Practicing mindfulness is an opportunity to fight against our individualistic tendencies, giving us the chance to move past the superficial and into genuineness and loving kindness. My focus on mindfulness is shaped by our national concern over negative attitudes in wellness. Science is producing data that shows rising anxiety levels in all ages. Psychologists are treating depression at exponential rates, and historical trends show a decrease in overall satisfaction despite being in an age of overwhelming technology and luxury. Yet the 8 dimensions of wellness are truly straightforward, circling around foundational concepts like socialization and spiritualism and physical activity. But they require setting aside distractions and connecting on a genuine and open level, and it leaves me inspired to share this old tradition so that we can impart new progress. Through the dimension of psychology, we can apply the concept of emotional wellness to therapeutic and professional practices with awareness of clinical burnout and boundary maintenance. We see how therapists benefit from monitoring their own wellness in terms of empathy, sense of self, and emotional attunement. In other words, even in a professional capacity, society benefits when individuals can tune into their personal well-being and direct it outward. While reading magazines, watching morning talk shows, or listening to professional workshops, you hear the conversation routinely turn to concepts like self-care, wellness, and positive mindset. And getting the conversation of wellness embedded into cultural awareness is immense progress. The next step, which began with turning mindfulness into a buzzword, is to take action. By opening channels of communication, we help ourselves and influence others to make the small changes that lead to permanent habits. And these habits spark a fire of awareness and social caring. The fact that wellness is a well-known word means that this has already begun. People are talking, and this is what we are designed to do. Progress is in motion.